Welcome to Vegan Finds, where we're going to turn this to this Semmelknudlen. This is a pretzel bread dumpling with a mushroom sauce. I'm going to top it off with some of the sauce. You don't need to, but that's how we like it. So stick around. We'll show you how it's done. Okay, so we're going to be making Semmelknudlen, which is a German bread dumpling. This bread might look familiar to you. This is our leftover pretzel bread. We made a bread bowl, and we had obviously a whole loaf left over, so rather than letting it go to waste, we're going to turn it into a pretzel bread dumpling. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut up some slices of bread and soak them in some non-dairy milk. So we're going to be using, I believe, almond milk for this. I just have to check the fridge, see what we have in there. So stick around. We'll show you how it's done. Okay, so I've sliced up some of our bread to go in there. I just want you to show you this. This was bread that I made for the beer cheese soup, and you can see this is pretty nice bread. This was only allowed to rise for about 40 minutes. So if this had been allowed to go for 2 hours, it'd have an even more bread-like texture. This is really good. I'm really thrilled with how it came out. So if you want a gluten-free pretzel bread recipe, go and check out the beer cheese. Actually, I think I made a separate video just for that, so you can check that out. Now I'm just going to slice these up into half-inch chunks. Since we're going to be soaking this and then mashing it, it doesn't really matter how big the chunks are. I've got probably, I think, 5 or 6 slices. I'm just going to throw them into a bowl right now. And these are going to absorb our, basically the non-dairy milk that we're using. And this is going to obviously be the basis for the bread dumpling. You're probably better off erring on the side of extra as opposed to not enough bread, because these are going to basically be cooked into our gravy that we're going to make with mushrooms and some onions. So here we go. I'm going to get the milk out. I'm going to add about a cup and 1 3/4 cups of milk to our bowl here. And once this is done sitting and absorbing the milk, we're going to add some other ingredients. We're going to add some shallots to this. We're going to add some onion, some some breadcrumbs, a little bit of gluten-free flour, some garlic powder, and some parsley. That's going to form the basis of our dumpling. So here I have 1 3/4 cups of almond milk. One thing I failed to mention is that the milk should be warm. So I'm going to pop this in the microwave for 35, 40 to 45 seconds, just so it comes up to something lukewarm. This is ice cold, so you don't want to add the ice cold milk to our mix. Okay, so our milk is warm, and I'm just going to pour this over our chunks of bread here. Let them get soak in here. Now I'm going to set this aside, let it soak for a half an hour. I need a 1/4 cup of shallot. I'm going to do a fairly thin mince for this. Now, if you've never cooked with shallot, it's basically the chef's secret weapon when it comes to dressings and things like that, and sauces. It's got an onion flavor, but it's not overpowering. Just gives it a subtle flavor as opposed to regular onions, which can sometimes overwhelm a dish. So I'm going to slice up a 1/4 cup here. Then I'm going to move on to getting the other ingredients set up. I got to chop up some parsley as well. Get the breadcrumbs. We're going to use 6 tablespoons of our panko breadcrumbs here. I'm going to just check and I'll just finish this off because it's such a small piece. And basically see where we're at. Oops. I think this is definitely more than a 1/4 cup. Let me just see. Yeah, we got a little bit more than a 1/4 cup, and that's all right. I'm just going to use the whole thing. You know, no point in wasting it. But you want to jazz up a salad dressing, add a little bit of shallot to it. Really will improve the flavor. This one's pretty strong. It's making my eyes water just a teeny tiny bit. So let's see, the next ingredient that I need to do. Okay, so I'm going to chop up a 1/4 cup of flat leaf parsley. You can use the curly leaf. I happen to like the flavor of the flat leaf. It's a little bit easier to work with. Here. So that looks to be about a 1/4 cup. Just going to mince it a little bit more since this is going to be part of our, basically our dumpling dough, as it were. I want the pieces. Nothing worse than getting a giant piece of parsley, because you know that's going to get stuck in your tooth. It'll get stuck in my tooth. I shouldn't say in your tooth. It definitely gets stuck in my tooth, and I'll be looking like a grinning fool. All right, so we got that. I'm going to stick that right in with our shallot. And we'll get the next ingredient. Okay, so we're using the Kikkoman panko gluten-free breadcrumbs for this. I need 6 tablespoons in a convenient resealable bag, which is always nice. Usually I mess these bags up big time. So we're going to put 5 in our little bowl here. And we're also using, turn it around, Bob's Red Mill 1-for-1 gluten-free baking flour. So we got 1. Hopefully it all fits in here. Might not. 2, 3, 4 und 5. Oh, I keep doing that. I need 6. 5, 6. So we have our gluten-free breadcrumbs. Now we get some gluten-free flour. Breadcrumbs are vegan, so finding vegan gluten-free breadcrumbs is not easy. There are only 1 or 2 companies that do it, so that's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So to this, I'm just going to add some garlic powder to the flour. This is all going to go into our dumpling mix. So while that's soaking up, we'll add these ingredients and mash it all together. To my flour, I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. So while we're waiting for our bread to soak, I'm going to start prepping our ingredients for the gravy that the dumplings are going to be cooked in. So I've got a 10-ounce package of button mushrooms here. You can use baby Bellas, anywhere from 8 to 10 ounces. There's nothing more annoying than having a recipe that calls for 8 ounces when they know the package comes as 10 ounces. So in this case, if it comes in an 8-ounce package, that's fine. If it comes in a 10-ounce package, also fine. You can't have too many mushrooms as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just going to slice these up. Not super thin, but you want to be able to notice them when they're in the dish. But it's fine regardless how you slice them. It's going to be tasting great regardless. So I'm going to continue with this. I'm going to set these aside. I'm going to then dice up half of an onion. This is a fairly sizable onion. I'm only going to dice up half. If you have a small onion, use the whole thing. Again, since I'm going to be cooking something tomorrow with an onion, it's okay if I use the half. If you don't cook every night like we do, then probably using the whole thing is probably better. Getting something smaller as opposed to some of the giant onions. We couldn't get any onions that were normal sized. They were super small. And now all we can get are giant onions. So I guess you can't win for losing sometimes when it comes to produce. You just don't know. And that's one of the great things and one of the terrible things about this stuff is you're never quite sure what you're going to get. So I'm going to go cut this onion up right now. Seen me peel these things a million times. Do it again just in case. Nope, totally botched that one up. This is a brand new knife. It's pretty sharp. And this onion is definitely over. It's like dripping down my arm. It's so, you can see how kind of juicy that is. Well, maybe you can't because of the way the lighting is set up right now. Get rid of that. Let's see if I can tone down the light. It's bright, it's bright, it's bright. Bright light, or not. I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, I'm just going to finish peeling it. Okay. Set this aside. Get out of my way. Whew. Oh my God, my eyes are melting right now. I really should use the Roy Choi method of putting saran wrap over your eyes. There we go. This is all set up, ready to go. So I'm going to start prepping our gravy and get that started because that'll take a few minutes, and by the time I'm done with the setting up the gravy, we'll be able to finish off the knödel. Okay, so as part of the prep for our gravy, I've got 2 cups of vegan chickenless chicken broth, or no chicken broth. It's organic, low sodium. It's by Imagine Foods. And I'm adding to this 3 tablespoons of arrowroot starch. This is going to be the thickener for our gravy. We're going to use the whole package of the chickenless chicken broth. I'll show it to you after I've done using it, because obviously I don't want it to spill out. Actually, I'm just going to cover, twist on the top so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. It's this. Imagine no chicken broth. So this is a really great product. I'm going to whisk this up. I'm going to set it aside. And, oh, shoot! You didn't hear that, and you didn't see that. Well, you definitely didn't see it, but you definitely heard it. Old Butterfingers here just tipped over part of the breadcrumbs, but that's okay. A few fewer isn't going to hurt anything. So I'm going to whisk this up, set it aside, and we're going to start by sauteing our onions and garlic together. Okay, so in my pan I have a tablespoon of avocado oil. I'm just adding our onions to this right now. I'm also going to squeeze in our garlic clove, doing the cheating method of using a garlic press as opposed to actually chopping this stuff up myself. I just find it faster. Alexa, turn off timer. Faster and easier that way. We're going to cook this till it's transparent. Okay, so now we're going to add our mushrooms. I'm going to cook these till they just start to release their liquid. So while that is cooking, I'm going to start by taking care of our breadcrumbs here. So to this, we are going to be adding, what are we doing? Okay, I'm going to add our shallots, our parsley, all the ingredients that we have right here. We're just going to do that. Okay, well, let me just mash it just a little bit first before we get to that part. Okay, I'm just going to mash this up with a fork. Like so. Potato masher will work just fine. Depends on how chunky you want it. But you want some decent sized chunks and some just regular old mush. So a little bit of everything in here. So now I'm going to add the breadcrumbs and the other ingredients. I'm just going to kind of press some of this in. We got our shallots and our parsley and our breadcrumbs. I'm just going to get that all together like so. Our mushrooms are still cooking here. Now this is an induction cooktop, so the pan itself, other than the bottom part, doesn't really get hot. So otherwise I would not recommend doing this on the stove like this. So don't do what I do. Okay, so I'm going to mix this up with the wooden spoon here. Because what we're going to do is we're going to use the gravy to cook our dumplings. It smells great. That much I can tell you. I'm sure it'll taste great too. But, alright. Once this is ready to be put into the gravy, I will show you how to scoop this out and get it ready for the final countdown. Crumbs are looking pretty good here. So what we're going to now do is add our stock with the arrowroot starch in there. I'll just give it another quick stir. I'm going to finish by adding the additional 2 cups. So you got a total of 4 cups going into this. You want to bring it up to a boil. To this, I am adding 1 teaspoon of dry thyme. This is thyme. Just got to double check that. And since I have ground sage, I'm only going to put in about half a teaspoon of ground sage. We're going to let this come up to a boil, and that should start to thicken it up. Once that happens, and then we can start adding in our dumpling dough, or dumpling batter, I should say. One other item I forgot to mention is sauerkraut. This is completely optional. Do not, if you don't like sauerkraut, don't put it in this. Doris loves sauerkraut, so I'm going to put some in here if I can get it out of the container. I'm going to probably put in a little bit more than half a cup, but absolutely 100% optional. So, just going to mix this in. Take a little taste, and you can see it's already starting to thicken up. I'm going to just turn the heat up a little bit more. Good. Could use a little bit of salt. Yeah, you know what? Could use a little more sauerkraut, actually. Nope, it's got just enough sauerkraut. Now that I've mixed it up a little bit more, I'm going to add, oh, I knew I was forgetting something. Our favorite ingredient in this household, nutritional yeast powder. Totally forgot. Sometimes I don't know where my head is at. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons to this. And it's now finally coming to a boil, of course. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Just going to give it a good stir here. Nutritional yeast kind of gives it a little bit of a cheesy flavor. Just kind of one of those things that you never thought you'd eat, and then suddenly you find yourself eating it and going, how come I never had this before? That's this item right here. It's got packed with B vitamins, protein. Oh yeah, much better. I'm going to add some pepper to this because it definitely needs a little bit of zip to it. Now you could add mustard powder as well. I'm actually just going to add a couple pinch. I'm going to add a pinch of red pepper flakes, because I don't know where the black pepper is. Oh, I found it. I'm going to just sprinkle on some black pepper. I can open the stupid thing. I just broke our pepper grinder, so I got to resort to the not great stuff here. All right. Beautiful. So, now that we got this bubbling away, it's time to add our stuff into the batter, into the gravy. So, you can use a half cup, quarter cup measure. Just basically, you want it, a little bit like the size of your baseball here. Golf ball. You just want to plop it in to your bowl, into your gravy here. And this is a fairly wet, sticky dough. And I'm just going to keep going here. And when it's all done, you're going to let this cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. Flip them over midway through. I'll show you when I'm ready to flip it over. I'll be back in a flash. Okay, so all our dumplings are in. It's okay if they touch. You're going to cook these, you're going to simmer them. You don't want this a rolling boil, because this is a very wet, loose dough, and the balls will break apart if you have your boiling point too high. So you just want it a gentle simmer. There's not, there's really nothing in there that you have to worry about. If it doesn't cook 100% through, not going to kill you. After this cooks for 5 minutes, you're going to take basically a slotted spoon or something and just gently roll them over so it's cooked on both sides. I'll show you the finished product momentarily. Okay, so I flipped over our dumplings, and they're cooking away. Got about another 5 minutes till they're finished. So once they're done, I'm going to plate them up, sprinkle a little chopped parsley on there, and a little bit of paprika. We're good to go. I'll be back in a flash. Okay, so here we have our finished Semmelknudlen. I haven't topped it with the gravy because I wanted you to get a good idea. See, they're really firmed up after cooking them. It's a really wet dough, so don't get discouraged. They will stay together. They will stay together. Unlike the beetles, they will stay together. So, if you like these recipes, please click subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. Definitely leave comments. We like to hear what people think about our recipes. If they have any ideas, any improvements, always welcome. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, follow us on TikTok. And always be safe, enjoy, and we'll be back with some more great Oktoberfest food for you tomorrow.